Hi, my lovelies. Welcome back to another video. It has been a while since I posted on here, but we're back again with another one. In today's video, I'm going to be combining two of my favorite things, movies and books. So in today's video, I'll be recommending a book for you to read based on a specific movie. So before you get started, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. So without any further ado, let's get into it. If you enjoyed watching Intergalactic, I think that you really enjoy Honey and Spice by Bulu Babalola. So the main theme between Honey and Spice and Intergalactic is the portrayal of peak black love. So you'll see that movies and just like forms of media in general sort of have a tendency of portraying struggle love when it comes to a romance story between two black characters. So what I love about both Intergalactic and Honey and Spice is that they shy away from that narrative of struggle love and just show pure peak black love at its finest. Black love that is genuine and that is not associated with struggle. So the plot for Honey and Spice is that it follows our main character Kiki, who is a student at Whitewall University. So Kiki runs a student radio show called Brown Sugar, in which she warns all the girlies about how to avoid situationships, heartbreaks, and all of that jazz. So in one of the episodes of Brown Sugar, Kiki warns the girlies about Malachi Koride, who is known to be the player of Whitewall University. But then one day, Kiki is seen kissing Malachi at one of the university events. So in order to save both of their reputations, Kiki and Malachi agree to fake date each other, and the rest is history. What I really loved about Honey and Spice is how the author developed the relationship between Kiki and Malachi. So this book is a bit over like 400 pages, which is longer than a typical romance novel. But I really appreciate how the author took her time to develop Kiki and Malachi's relationship. We got to know Kiki and Malachi individually as characters within the space of them building their relationship. And I think that's something that a lot of romance novels sort of lack sometimes, is that there's so much focus on the build-up of the relationship stuff that we don't really get to understand the two people that are in the relationship. So Bulu Babalola does an amazing job at portraying Kiki and Malachi as two individual people, and I really appreciated how Malachi's character was developed, because at the beginning we see him as this player who has this reputation, but then as he starts to speak to Kiki, as he starts to get to know Kiki, his layers start to unravel, and you start to understand him as a person. You start to see how he thinks, what his views on relationships are, and it's really so beautiful and so genuine. And there's truly nothing I love more than a black love story. It is just absolutely chef's kiss. This book had me kicking my feet, giggling late at night. It's one of those books that you just don't want to put down because of just how good it is. So I would highly recommend Honey and Spice. I rated this book a 5 out of 5 stars because it literally robbed me of nothing. Bulu Babalola gave me everything that I needed in a romance novel, the same way in which Intergalactic gave me everything I needed in a romance movie. Turning, we follow our main character Kate, who agrees to take on the job of being the governess for 2 orphaned kids. So she goes to the mansion that the kids stay at, and she stays there with their nanny while she's the governess for them. So as she's staying at the mansion, she starts to realize that, hey man, there's a bit of a few creepy things happening around here. And now she's asking herself, Am I just going crazy? Is this real, or is it all really in my head? So if you enjoyed The Turning, then I would highly recommend Verity by Colleen Hoover. Now, I didn't think there'd be a day where I'd be speaking about Colleen Hoover on my channel, but this is truly her only book that is worth reading. So in Verity, we follow our main character, Lowen. So Lowen is a struggling author who is barely making ends meet. So Lowen is presented with this one-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So Verity Crawford is the best-selling author of this series, but Verity is involved in a serious accident that causes her to be injured to the point where she is bedridden and cannot do anything. So in order to finish her series, her husband hires Lowen to be the ghostwriter for Verity Crawford. So Lowen takes the job, she agrees to finish the books, and she goes to live with Verity and her husband. As she is there, she discovers a manuscript of an autobiography that Verity wrote but didn't want anyone to see. So she starts reading this manuscript of this autobiography, and she starts to see that, hey, some things are not adding up. Some things are amiss in this place. And she starts to see certain things happening in Verity's house, and then she's like, am I going crazy? Is this all in my head, or is this actually happening? The same way in which Kate was in The Turning. So Verity is such an amazing book. You know, I'm always surprised that Colleen Hoover can write such an amazing book, then go and write something like It Ends With Us.
And no shade. No shade.
Anyway, what I really enjoyed and loved about Verity is that, firstly, the way in which the book was structured. So I remember reading it, I remember that all the chapters felt very short, and it kept you at your feet, kept you intrigued throughout the book. So as I was reading, I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to see what will happen next. I see that the chapter has ended. I'm like, oh, I want to start the other chapter. So as I was reading, I was constantly intrigued, and I constantly wanted to find out more. I also really loved how she developed Lowen's character, because you sort of got to know Lowen as a person herself, whilst she was also trying to figure out what type of person Verity is through her writing. So this book was really amazing. There's some really messed up stuff that happens in this, but it's just like you're reading and you're like, there's no way I just read that. There's truly no way I just read that. And you just like, you go back and you're like, wait a minute, something is... So it just constantly has you intrigued, constantly has you trying to figure out stuff, and it's so creepy. I love it. I love it. So if you enjoy that type of vibe where you're the reader trying to figure out what is going on, you're getting a bit creeped out, things are sort of toying with your mind in the same way that things in the book are toying with Lowen's mind. So it's amazing. An amazing book. 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. And if you've read this book already, all I have to ask you is, are you team manuscript or are you team letter? So if you really enjoyed watching The Women King, I think you'll have a blast with The Gilded Ones by Namina Fauna. So The Gilded Ones and The Women King have one main thing in common: female dominance, more specifically Black female dominance. So in The Gilded Ones, we follow our main character Decca, who lives in Otera. So in Otera, there is a ceremony called the Ritual of Purity. So this ritual is done in order to test the purity of the girls in the world based on the color of their blood. So if you bleed red, you are deemed to be pure, but if you bleed gold, you are deemed to be impure and characterized as a demon. So the the ritual of purity comes about, and Deka unfortunately bleeds gold and her world falls apart. But then, in the midst of the ritual, she is approached by a woman who presents her with the opportunity of joining a camp of girls like her who have gold blood running through their veins. So Decca agrees to join this camp, and when she gets to this camp, she realizes that the camp is training the girls to be able to fight Otera's greatest enemy. So what I really enjoyed about the Gilded Ones, firstly, is the development of the world of Otera itself. So you see that in fantasy books, the world building is really, really key to making or breaking a fantasy world. Because if I don't understand the world that the book is set in, then I'm just lost. So I really loved how Namina Fauna built up the world of Otera, how she described each and every single place, how she described the mechanisms of the magic system within the world, because there is magic. So I really enjoyed how she did that, because it was very easy to understand, it was very easy to follow, and there wasn't any point in the book where I felt confused. And that is really, for me, key in a fantasy novel. I also loved Decca's character development, because at the start of the book we see her as the shy girl and she's sort of like in her shell, but as the book proceeds, she sort of starts to gain more confidence, she sort of starts to understand herself as a person, and it's just really beautiful to see her flourish. I loved how she built relationship with the other girls in the camp, who happen to be the side characters of the book, but then they don't really feel like side characters because Namina Fauna wrote them in such a way that they also feel like such layered characters within the book, even though they are not the main characters, such as Decca. So I really enjoyed that. There was a lot of female solidarity within the book, and like the portrayal of female friendship was very beautiful, because even in the midst of them fighting for their lives, they still cared for each other. They were still there for each other in moments of distress, in moments of trouble, in order to comfort themselves, and really just show the beauty of female friendship. So I would highly recommend that you read The Gilded Ones. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I remember that I first read it like a few years ago. I think it was 2022 or 2021, but then I reread it in 2024 and I still loved it as much as I did the first time. So me rereading it and still loving it the way I did the first time I read it truly shows how amazing it is as a book. So yeah, highly recommend that you pick this one up. So I remember the first time I watched Knives Out, I was completely and utterly blown away by how well done it is. So if you enjoyed watching Knives Out like myself, I'd highly recommend One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. So Karen McManus is an author that I've dabbled in quite a few, because I have 2 of her other books right here. So she's also written Nothing More to Tell and You'll Be the Death of Me. So One of Us is Lying is my second favorite book by her. I think her best book that I've read is You'll Be the Death of Me, which I also really highly recommend. So honorable mention. But in One of Us is Lying, we follow 5 students who are in detention. So 5 students enter detention, but only 4 walk out alive. So at the end of the detention, one of the students is dead. Now, the book follows the mystery of the student who died. So it is an investigation which the police are trying to figure out what actually happened to the boy who killed the boy out of the 4 students. And what's really interesting is that each and every single student had a motive as to why they would have wanted to kill the student who died. So the same way with Knives Out, that it is set in one location, or primarily in one location, because remember with Knives Out, it was set in Harlem's estate, and majority of the book took place within that estate. And with One of Us is Lying, the book primarily takes place within the room in which they had detention in. So I read One of Us is Lying quite a few years back, so I really don't remember that much of my reading experience. But one thing that I do remember is how I really enjoyed how the author wrote down different perspectives of each student. So the book sort of switch changes between each and every single student. We see each student's point of view, we see their thought process, and we see the type of person they are and the background which they come from, and the motives that they had to kill the student who died. So as you're reading, you're also trying to figure out who could have committed the crime based on their motives. So I rated this book a 4 out of 5 stars. So it was really, really good. And I know that there is a Netflix show on it, but I haven't watched the Netflix show, and I don't think I ever will, because in fact, I watched the first episode, but then I did enjoy it. So I was like, I don't want to ruin my experience of what the book is. So I just stopped. But if you're a fan of mystery, and just piecing the puzzles together, basically you being Sherlock Holmes as you read, then I would highly recommend that you pick up One of Us is Lying by Kerr McManus. So, ladies and gentlemen and non-binary folks, that is it for today's video. These are all the books we spoke about today. Thank you so much for taking your time to tune in and watch. If you've reached this far, comment down below your favorite color so I know who my real ones are. But definitely do give these books a read and tell me what you think. And if you haven't watched the movies as well, highly recommend that you do. If I were to pick my favorite movie from the selection, it would definitely be Intergalactic. And if I were to pick my favorite book from the selection, definitely Verity by Colleen Hoover. But yeah, once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Till we meet again, love y'all so much. All the books we talked about to make another. No, you don't say that.